everyone, it's Nell, and I'm here today with my July watching wrap-up. In the month of July, I watched 4 movies and I finished 4 TV shows. The first movie that I watched this month was Super Troopers 2. I really enjoyed the first one when I watched it way back when, but I was pretty hesitant going into this movie. I had not seen any of the trailers, I didn't know what to expect. I had also watched the first movie about 10 years ago, so I know my movie tastes have changed, my humor has changed. I wasn't really sure if I was going to enjoy this movie. The movie opens with 2 new actors, not the regular Broken Lizard crew, so I was immediately nervous. I wasn't sure if we had new cast for this movie, if they were just going to make a cameo. Again, I hadn't watched the trailer, so I wasn't sure what to expect. The opening scene, in my opinion, tried too hard. It wasn't as funny as I wanted it to be. But after we get through that first segment, the movie starts going, and it's pretty enjoyable. The boys are no longer on the force due to a celebrity ride-along incident gone bad. They are now working construction. North of Vermont is territory that was previously Canadian soil, but is now going to be part of the United States, and they need a police force there to do border patrol, etc. There's a lot of bickering back and forth between the French-Canadian residents of the town and the new police force. Overall, it was funny enough. It wasn't a great movie. It tried too hard at times, especially the brothel scene. I didn't find that to be funny at all. Rob Lowe's character was all right at best, but there were definitely some solid scenes and some solid lines. Farva was great, or bad as usual. Best scene, in my opinion, was the argument in French between 2 of the characters. This is definitely a watchable movie. I would suggest, however, seeing if you can find a copy through your library or a coupon code through Redbox. It's funny enough, it has its moments, but overall I gave it 2.5 stars. Next movie I watched was Black Panther. I was really excited about this movie, but again, I didn't know anything about it. I have not read any of the comic books. I didn't know much about this character, so I went into this movie not knowing much, but having pretty high expectations based on what I had heard. I thought this was a great story concept. I loved Wakanda as a nation. I loved the mix of the advanced technology and the sort of ancestral magic. It was visually stunning for the most part. There were a few times the CGI was a little bit off, but I really enjoyed the visuals of this movie, the color schemes, the landscapes, again, the technology. Visually, it was a pretty movie. My favorite character by far was Shuri. She is hilarious. I loved her character. I loved her banter. I loved how strong she was. I loved how intelligent she was. She was just one of my favorite characters in the movie. Biggest downfall for me for this movie was definitely the pacing. The movie was extremely long, and especially towards the beginning, the pacing was just very off. We were watching this movie and I thought we were building up to the climax. We had to pause to take care of some things in the house, and when I looked at the time, I realized we weren't even halfway through yet. In my opinion, this movie could have almost been 2 or 3 movies. I felt like they were trying to add too much backstory to this, try to tell the audience about this character, try to tell about his backstory, introduce the villains, build the world, the nation of Wakanda. There was just too much going on for a single movie. We either needed to gloss over some of the aspects, speed things up, and in my opinion, in most of the superhero Marvel type movies, the fight scenes are way too long. I like getting to know the characters, I like getting to know the world, and the fight scenes seem to take up almost half of the movie. So with the pacing being off, again, it was an interesting concept, a little bit strange, sloppy execution. I gave this movie 3 stars. The next movie that I watched was Me, Earl and the Dying Girl. I had read this book a few years back. I really enjoyed it. I know it kind of got mixed reviews, but I really did enjoy the book and was excited to see the film adaptation of it. In my opinion, this was a really good adaptation. They had all of the key elements. Everyone was very true to character in this. The characters were a great balance between being funny and awkward. It was, in my opinion, very true to high school years. I thought the friendships in this movie were great. That was one of the things I really loved about the book, was the friendships. This isn't one that revolves around love triangle or romantic relationships. In my opinion, a romantic relationship in this story would have really deterred from it, detracted, and tainted what was there. This was a great coming of age story about friendship, about growing up, awkward teenage years. It wasn't just your average, again, romantic movie or love triangle or slapstick comedy. It had a lot of heart to it. The acting in this movie was great. Thomas Mann, RJ Kyler, and Olivia Cooke as the trio of Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl. They were fantastic. Thomas Mann, to me, shined in this movie. Thomas Mann was perfect for this role. He was equal parts funny and awkward and charming and sweet, and I just really loved him. Overall, I enjoyed this movie. I loved the movie aspect of it as well. I remember making movies with my friends when I was probably a little bit younger than the main character. We loved to get together and write scripts and make movies, and so I really related to that as well. That might have been why I found this movie a little bit more enjoyable, or the story a little bit more enjoyable than some of the other people who have watched it, just because I could relate to that aspect. But again, I really enjoyed this movie. It was fun and sad and overall really enjoyable. I gave it 3.5 stars. The last movie that I watched was The Shape of Water. I loved Pan's Labyrinth and The Orphanage, but Guillermo del Toro's, one of his more recent movies, Crimson Peak, I thought was just meh. It was fine. I really didn't know what to expect going into this movie, but I was very interested in it, especially because it had won Best Picture for 2018. Like all of his movies, this movie is beautiful. It is visually stunning. I loved the different colors that he used. He used a lot of browns and greens to give it not only just a retro vibe, but also a very aquatic feel. And then he accented those with a red. So visually, this movie was beautiful. I also loved that it was a unique story. So many of the movies out there are superhero movies, and then you also have a lot of remakes now. And so I thought it was really interesting to have such a unique story. The story is reminiscent of both Creature from the Black Lagoon and Beauty and the Beast, but it's so unique. It's its own story, and I really appreciated that. The acting in this movie was also superb. Sally Hawkins did a tremendous job. She plays a mute in the movie, and for her to convey everything that she was able to throughout the movie without speaking, just in her actions, her body language, everything else, she did a fantastic job. She conveyed so much and was such a likable character, and for her to be able to do that without any dialogue is amazing. Michael Shannon also does an outstanding job. He plays our all-American villain, and he is spectacular. You hate him, but at the same time, he is doing such a good job. The story was equal parts sweet and beautiful and creepy and strange, and I think I enjoyed it. It was, again, definitely unique, definitely something new. I still have mixed feelings about it, and I'm kind of conflicted about it winning an Oscar. It had all of the elements, so as a whole, I understand why it won. It was, again, visually stunning. The story was interesting and unique. The acting was superb, so it had all of these pieces, even the music. As a whole, it had everything it needed to be a Best Picture, but again, the story, it's a strange story. A little bit creepy, a little bit unsettling. I want to keep this spoiler free, but there's one aspect of the movie that I keep going back and forth with. I've kind of talked about it with my husband as far as, was that really needed? Was that necessary for the story? If you've seen the movie, I think you know kind of what I'm talking about. There's just an element to the story that takes it to a different level, and part of me thinks that it's needed to sort of humanize some of the characters, but it also is sort of, was that really needed, or did that take this movie to a place that it didn't really need to go? I just don't know how I feel about this one being a Best Picture winner. I did really enjoy it, though. I gave it 4.5 stars, but still a little bit conflicted on it being Best Picture of the Year. As far as TV shows, I finished 4 TV shows this month. I started them a little bit earlier, but I finished them this month, and so as a whole, I can kind of go over my thoughts and feelings on them. I watched 4 fantastic shows, and I really have a hard time ranking these. They were all great shows. I gave them anywhere between 4 and 4.5 stars, so these are going to be in no particular order. First show I watched was season 2 of Man in the High Castle. I had read the book a few years ago. It was fine. I like Philip K. Dick as a writer as far as his concepts, but as far as the execution of his work, there's a lot to be desired there, especially with the characters. So I didn't know what to expect going into this show. I flew through season 1, really enjoyed it, and then was excited to see where season 2 went. If you don't know much about this show, this is an alternate history showing what would have happened if the Nazis or the Axis powers had won World War II. Where the book fell a little bit flat and the characters, I absolutely love the characters in this show. They were good in season 1, but season 2 you really get to see them develop, you get to see them interact with each other. Two of my favorite characters are Juliana and Tagami. I love the way that their characters are developing, the way that their stories are intertwining. I'm really excited to see what happens with them in season 3. Another character I love is Ed. He's so sweet, so charming, so faithful and loyal as a friend. I'm kind of nervous for his character though. I could see it going one of two ways. Either he's going to do something awesome and amazing that helps all the other characters, or more than likely, it could even relate to that a little bit, but I kind of think that his character is going to die tragically. I really like his character. I hope they don't kill him off, but to me, that kind of seems where his character might go. One of my least favorite characters in this season would probably be Frank and his storyline. That's not to say that I don't enjoy it. His character is so interesting, and I love his interactions with, I believe her name is Sarah. He has an interesting story. It just doesn't have the same, isn't as enjoyable maybe as some of the other characters. But for this, there are so many characters. They play together so well that it's really hard for me to pick a least favorite. His is my least favorite for this season, but at the same time, I really, really enjoy it too. I also love in this season how we get more from Smith. To me, this is just a sign of both good acting and good writing when you can start to make the audience maybe not feel for, but start to understand the villain, start to humanize him, see him as a more three-dimensional character. Towards the end, especially the season finale, we get so much from Smith, his story, his family, and I just love that. I love seeing where he came from, how he became the man that he was, what's important to him, and that he's not just this one-dimensional villain in this, but really this dynamic character with all of these ambitions and motives. So I'm really excited to see what happens with season 3. Season 3 is set to air in October, and I will definitely be checking it out. The next show that I watched was Westworld season 2. This has got to be one of the best shows, in my opinion, that is currently on. I just love this show so much. It is such an interesting mix of Wild West and science fiction. In season 2 was definitely not a letdown. It went in a different direction than season 1. Season 1 was The Maze, and then season 2, I believe, was called in general The Door or The Doorway. And I just love this show. I really love the nonlinear aspect of this, sort of the question that we ask frequently through the show, when is now? We piece it together so well that we get snippets here and snippets there, and so we're getting pieces of the puzzle, and you're intrigued and a little confused but not lost throughout the show. Sort of, you get pieces of information when you need them, and the way that you put the show together, I just love the way that they do that. I also like the questions of humanity in the show. Are the hosts more human than the humans? Who are the humans? Are there humans left? Are everyone hosts? Where are we? I wouldn't say that I'm a sci-fi junkie, but I do love sci-fi movies, science fiction movies, especially that pertain to artificial intelligence, what is humanity, things like that. And so this show really does a good job of looking at those, but in a really fun and interesting way with the Wild West park concept. I really love the characters in the show as well. First season, my favorite character was probably Dolores and William. I love their story. Season 2, Maeve is probably my favorite character. I love all the characters. I'm excited to see where each of their stories is going to go in the next season. But as far as season 2, my favorite storyline was definitely Maeve's. As well as Maeve's, I also really enjoyed the Man in Black. He adds a good balance or dynamic to this story, showing different perspectives. I love the evolution of his character, and he really helps to ground and connect all of these intertwining stories. This show is so well done. The writing is spot on. The acting is tremendous. The visuals are stunning. This show is one of my favorite ones on right now, as I said, and I'm really excited. I don't know when season 3 is coming out, but I'm really excited about that. The next show I watched was Handmaid's Tale season 2. Season 1 went through the entirety of the novel. I had read the novel by Margaret Atwood a few years back. I really enjoyed it. I love her writing. So I was excited to see the show. The show is spectacular. I wasn't sure what to expect with season 2 since we completed or went all the way through the source material. I wasn't sure where they were going to go with it. The first few episodes got off to a bit of a rocky start. It was enjoyable throughout, but you could kind of tell that there was a transition there of we're going from a book to something completely new and original. The first few episodes were definitely a transition period. The season really then picks up, and by the finale, I was in tears. The characters are fabulous in this. I love the characters. I love June. She is so strong and resilient and maternal, but at the same time, she still makes some mistakes or has moments of, I wouldn't really say weakness, but moments of humanity, moments of compassion. In this season, I didn't quite expect it, but I really started to enjoy and understand Serena's character a bit more. There are quite a few scenes between her and June where it goes from dominating and controlling and terrifying to empathetic and compassionate, and I just really like the growth of her character. I like the way that her character then would interact with June, would then interact with the commander. I just really enjoyed seeing her character evolve. I also loved how we got to see a little bit more of the world in this. We got to see the colonies. I loved the scenes that were shot in Canada when some of our characters travel there, to see the politics, to see how the characters and their situations are viewed internationally. I just thought that was a really interesting element to this. I am anxiously awaiting season 3. I really want to watch it right now. I don't know if this show is just more relevant to me right now, being a new mom, or if it's the acting. Elizabeth Moss is spectacular in this, but I am really, really, really enjoying this show, and I cannot wait for season 3. The last show that I watched was Catastrophe season 1. After 3 pretty dark and heavy shows, I wanted something witty and fun. So I was looking through my Prime account. It recommended to me Catastrophe. It got high reviews. I didn't know anything really going into this show, but I was pleasantly surprised. It is the perfect type of comedy in that there's no laugh track. It's humorous, but it's also real and relevant. It revolves around relationships, sex, family. It kind of reminds me of the TV show You're the Worst, just with a little bit more mature characters. It's really funny. Not every single joke is a hit in this, but it seems like the characters almost know that, and it gives it, again, that more realistic element in that this is really what life is like. It's funny, it's witty, it's smart, and it's honest. Even though we may not be in the same situations as the characters, we can still relate to them in how do we deal with this? How do we make this work? Are we doing this for the right reason? Am I ready for this? And then the emotional response, the comedic response, the supporting characters. I love Fran and Chris. I don't know why. Fergal is funny as well, but Fran and Chris, I don't know. I just love them. They are great, annoying supporting characters. Carrie Fisher also has a small role in this, and she is spectacular. So I flew through this. I think I watched the first season in a day and a half. They're short. It's 6 episodes, each about a half an hour. And then I dove right into season 2. So I'm excited to see where the characters go with this. Definitely be continuing with however many seasons are currently out. Those are the TV shows and movies that I watched in the month of July. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to discuss any of these TV shows or movies further, please leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll have a new video for you soon. Bye!